Let's talk about something that happens in a lot of relationships, but almost no one talks about. Have you ever been with a partner where everything feels loving and connected, and then suddenly, they just seem to lose all interest in intimacy? It's confusing, it can be really painful, and it's a reality for so many couples. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden side of intimacy and try to understand a condition that affects countless women, yet stays completely in the shadows.
So, to get started, let's just take a look at the world around us for a second. We are constantly bombarded with messages about sexual health. But if you really pay attention, you'll start to notice something. It's a very, very one-sided conversation. I mean, think about it. You can't miss them, right? Whether you're flipping through a newspaper, sitting on the bus, or just watching TV, you're bound to see ads for men's sexual health. The message is always loud and clear, promising fixes for all sorts of problems. It's a public, open conversation.
Now, let's flip that coin. Have you ever seen a similar ad for a woman's sexual health issue? The answer is probably not, right? The reality is just radio silence. No posters, no commercials, no big public discussion. It's almost like these problems don't even exist.
And all this public silence is a big reason why a very real, very common condition gets completely misunderstood. So let's finally talk about what it is.
Okay, so the clinical term for this is female sexual dysfunction, or FSD for short. And this isn't just, not being in the mood one night. We're talking about a persistent, ongoing lack of desire or satisfaction that causes real personal distress. And what's so important to understand is that this is incredibly common, especially for women who are in long-term committed relationships.
And here is maybe the most crucial point of all. While physical things can play a part, the source we're looking at today emphasizes that FSD is so often rooted in psychological and emotional factors. It's not just a physical thing. It's deeply, deeply connected to a woman's mental state.
All right, so if it's not primarily a physical issue, what in the world is going on? Let's break down the real root causes here because it's a bit of a complex mix.
Well, there are a few big players here. Stress and depression. They're huge culprits. See, when you're dealing with that kind of emotional weight, it directly messes with your body's chemistry. It can actually cause the levels of hormones like estrogen and progesterone, the ones that help drive sexual desire, to just plummet.
Now this is where things can get really tricky. All these factors can trap a couple in this awful, vicious cycle. It might start with some stress or depression. That tanks the hormone levels, right? So sexual desire fades. But then the partner, who has no idea what's really happening, might start applying pressure for intimacy. And guess what? That pressure just makes the original stress and depression worse, which suppresses desire even more. It's a downward spiral that just keeps feeding itself.
And this is why that public silence we talked about becomes so destructive. When FSD isn't understood, partners are left to fill in the blanks on their own, and they usually come to some pretty damaging conclusions.
This creates this massive, painful gap between perception and reality. A partner might think, she's just not interested in me anymore. Or worse, maybe she's having an affair. But the potential reality? She could be completely overwhelmed with stress. Her hormone levels might be totally out of whack. She could be deep in a private battle with depression. What looks like rejection is actually a cry for help.
So, as you can imagine, reacting based on those wrong assumptions by trying to force the issue or convince her is pretty much the worst thing you can do. It just intensifies the core problem. It basically pours gasoline on the fire, making her feel even more overwhelmed and causing her to withdraw even further. So, the million-dollar question is, how do you break this cycle? How can a couple navigate this and find their way back to each other? Well, the good news is there is a clear path forward. The first, most important step? Just stop the pressure. Seriously, the whole dynamic has to shift. Instead of assuming, you have to start listening with real empathy. It's about changing your mindset from, she doesn't want me, to, what is she going through? Recognizing that the problem might be medical, hormonal or mental, takes the personal sting out of it. And that opens the door for real solutions, like gently encouraging her to speak with a professional, like a gynecologist or a sexologist.
This quote really just nails the whole thing, doesn't it? You can't force it. It's not how this works. Trying to do that is like trying to force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. You'll only cause damage. The pressure will always backfire, pushing your partner further away and making the root problem even deeper.
And so we're left with this question to really think about. By moving from assumption and pressure to empathy and support, a couple can actually transform this huge source of conflict into a chance for a deeper, more meaningful connection. It turns the question from what's wrong with us into how can we get through this together? And that can change everything.